Wagwan, Wagwan. Welcome to my channel. I am the DIY Yachty. Welcome back if you've been here before. In this video today, I'm doing a lower control arm on a 2018 Chrysler 300. Okay, this is the all-wheel drive model, and this is the new part, what it looks like. And jumping into this, what we're gonna do first of all is get this the shock bolt pull. Okay, so first thing I'm gonna do, so I'm using my impact here. If you don't have an impact, you can do this manually, but my best advice would be to spray all your nuts and bolts down with a good penetrating fluid, WD-40, liquid wrench, that type of stuff. All right. And like I said, this is a 2018 car, so it's not as rusted as some of the older cars will be. All right. So what I notice here is that my uh, tie rod is in the way of me pulling this bolt, so I'm going to get the tie rod out of the way. Okay. So like I said, I'm using my impact, so it makes the job faster and a little easier. So quick trick here is this area here, I'm gonna bang on it with a hammer to break it loose. Okay, so you have to hit directly in that area. Okay, and a good idea would be to keep the nut on here like I have it here. When while you're hammering, keep the nut on a couple of threads, so just in case you miss and hit the threads or hit the tie rod, you won't damage it. Okay, so going back to my shock or strut to get that bolt out. Okay, so getting the nut off. You can actually hammer. Use a decent hammer and hammer that out like that. Okay, but what I did, I used a impact. To break it loose before I hammered it out. Sometimes, like I said, the rust will lock these nuts and bolts, so the impact helps. All right, so I just use a little extension here just to tap it out further. All right. So next from here, what I'm pulling is the lower ball joint. Okay. So I've got my ratchet on there. And this one is kind of tight, but not too hard to get to. All right, and the same process here. You can leave the nut on if you're going to reuse the lower control arm, but because we're putting a newer control arm, we don't need to leave the nut on. Same thing with a hammer. You're going to tap in this area. Okay, so you tap with a hammer. And keep tapping, and eventually it breaks loose, just like that. Okay, so nice trick I learned, and it's one way of getting these connections loose. Like if in case you want to reuse them, it won't damage the boot. The rubber boot that holds the grease in place, it won't damage. All right, so in order to get to the inner bolt of this control arm, I'm gonna have to loosen this cover on the carriage cover, just this one side. So we're gonna remove those three clips that you see there, one in the middle and one on each side. You grab the middle, grab a hold of the middle, and pull, and it'll unlock. And then there are some other little bolts up front. Well, screws really. So I'm going to remove three of those. Just on the corner, just all I need is a little space to pry that cover down. And like I said, this job didn't turn out to be too bad, being that it's a 2018 car and it's not all rusted. Like this lower control arm will actually work on a from the 2011 to the 2018 Chrysler 300 and the Dodge Magnum. So you can imagine a 2011, 2012 car, it would be way more rust doing this job. So being that this is a relatively newer car, it wasn't too bad as far as rust is concerned. Okay. This is the front bolt of the lower control arm. And you can see I have a wrench holding the nut to the back of this bolt. So I'm using my foot to break it loose. The space was a bit tight. I couldn't get the impact in here, so I had to do this part manually. And you want to pay attention when when you take these parts apart, you have to put them back the exact same way. And these bolts, like on some cars, these are not slotted, where this is not a part of the adjustment for the alignment. It's just one hole. It doesn't move. It just fits in there one way. So that's a good thing. You don't have to do any markings or anything. You remove the bolt and you put it back. When you put the new part in, you put it back in the exact same position. There's no adjustments there. It's just a set sitting position. Okay, so there's actually a little washer in front of this bushing here, which you'll see once I get this other bolt removed. So this is the only way I could get to this bolt, was with the extension and my ratchet. Then I used this my jack handle for leverage to break it loose. And this car, it has the rack and pinion is actually electronic on this car. So this other side of the bolt, what I did here is I used my vice grip, put a socket onto my vice grip just to hold the head of the bolt, so I could loosen it. But as far as the rack and pinion is concerned, like I said, this is an electronic rack and pinion, but I realize I'm going to have to remove the one screw from the rack and pinion on this side and slide the rack and pinion out of the way in order to get that bolt out of there, which you'll see when I get to that point. The rack and pinion is actually blocking access to that bolt, or removing that bolt. Okay, so I'm tapping it through, so you can see the rack and pinion is right there in the way. This process will be pretty much the same on the Dodge and the Magnum. Okay, the only difference is on some of these cars, it will be what you call hydraulic. The rack and pinion will be the hydraulic type instead of the electrical type. So the hydraulic type, you won't be able to, like what I'm doing here. I'm going to remove this one bolt, and I'll be able to swing the rack and pinion back out of my way, just enough to get the bolt out. On the hydraulic type, you're going to have to take both bolts out of the rack and pinion because it's set up a little differently. Okay, so I have a wrench holding the top nut and pulling at the bottom. And there's a heat shield up top there. The nut actually helps to hold the heat shield in place. The heat shield between the exhaust manifold and the rack and pinion. Okay, so now I got the bolt out. I can swing rack and pinion out. Okay, remember this process only works with the electronic rack and pinion. If it's the hydraulic, you'll have to loosen bolts left and right on the rack and pinion and support the rack and pinion with a jack stand or some sort of support, because once you remove the bolts, the rack and pinion will just be hanging. So you don't want to put any pressure on the rack and pinion. Okay, so got everything loose, and here she comes. Okay, so you can see this bad boy is all cracked and ripped. Okay, it's a 2018. I'm surprised of the condition of it and for 2018, but it depends. It's part of climate, road conditions, all of that good stuff. So this is a colder part of the country that we're in, so get a lot of climate, the differences in the climate. Okay, weather, temperature wise. Okay, this little bush in here, I'm going to show you in a second. You have to remember to put this bushing back right on the front, right there. Okay, then you slide it back in. It's like a washer. It's like a rubber metal washer with a rubber facing. Okay, so it's kind of like a damper, I guess you could call it. I'm using my screwdriver to help align the hole to get the bolt back in place. So, like I said, this is 2018, so this job went pretty smoothly. Had it been 2011, 12, back older, like because the setup is pretty much the same back those years, I think the rust would have given me, much harder time had it been one of those older cars. Okay, but this one went pretty smoothly. Okay, so getting this bolt in. Like turn it, yeah, like I was screwing it in there. Once you get it in and started, you should be good. And if you should find this video helpful, please consider subscribing. It's totally free to subscribe. It'll definitely help me to grow my channel. Give me a thumbs up. That'll let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job, or you think I'm doing a good job over here. Okay? Everything is free, no cost, but it'll definitely help me to grow my channel. Alright? So, getting everything back together here. You're going to get lower ball joint bolt tightened. And again, this is the same process from 2011 to 2018 with the Chrysler 300 and the Dodge Magnum all-wheel drive models. the front wheel drive and rear wheel drive models, they don't have the one piece um, control arm. They have, it'll be separate pieces. It'll be even though it's front, it'll have a front control arm and a rear trailing control arm. So for the control arm, there are like 2 or 3 pieces on the rear wheel and front wheel drive cars. So the all wheel drive is the only car that has the one piece control arm. Alright, so I got it in place. Everything's tightened. All my bolts are tightened. Everything is nice and tight. Good to go. Alright. So that is how you do this job. Hope this video was helpful. Okay, just like I said, hit that subscribe button. It's totally free to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. Share the video to someone you think may be interested in using this information. And like I said, I'm the DIY Yachty. I post stuff on YouTube from time to time, but bless up.